Hi, this is Priyanka Chopra and you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media. Y Media has newspaper, midweek, radio, South Asian Pulse.
Hi, I'm Amitabh Bachchan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
Hi, this is Amir Khan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
अब हर दिन सुने GTA का नंबर 1 रेडियो स्टेशन FM 91.9.
You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y.
Prime Minister, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be back.
Online, SouthAsianDaily.com. The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media.
Hello everyone, my name is Jadoo. I'm the group editor at Y Media, and today we have the Justice Minister, Virani, with us. Sir, a very warm welcome on Y Media. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here with you today.
You're very welcome. So, first of all, compliments on your new job as the Justice Minister. So, what's there on the agenda for you?
Oh, there's a number of things on the agenda. We've got some legislative reforms. We've got issues that relate to ensuring we've got a full complement of judges at the various courts around the country. We've got various initiatives that relate to ensuring the justice system is addressing the needs of the community. We're looking at things like an Indigenous justice strategy, a Black justice strategy. We're also working to ensure we're combating things like hatred and harms that occur online.
All right. So why don't we start with crime? Crime is one of the challenges, and you know, being in media, look at the numbers, whether it's the Greater Vancouver area or the Greater Toronto area or Calgary, anywhere, the crime numbers we see are rising. And one of the major concerns that we hear from the community, we need bail reforms. I know your government is trying to do something on that one. So what will you do as a Justice Minister?
Well, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to make that my top priority when Parliament resumes. The Parliament is returning on September the 18th. My predecessor, David Lametti, who did incredible work in this regard, tabled some legislation that's called Bill C-48. It's about reforming the bail system. We heard a lot from different communities, like you mentioned, in Vancouver, Toronto, around the country. We heard it from law enforcement. We heard it from the members of the bench and also from different attorneys general about some changes that need to be made. So we gathered all of that information. We put together a legislative proposal, which is targeted and focuses in where the problem seems to be most significant, and that's with people who are repeat offenders, people that are using weapons in crimes, things like guns and knives. And we're targeting those types of individuals and making bail more restrictive. And what I'm hoping to do is get secure passage of that bill very quickly this fall so we can send it off to the Senate and pass it into law so that we can work on keeping Canadians safe.
Minister, thank you so much. I know your government is trying to bring in bail reforms and you will be leading on that front, but the questions are still being asked. There were other bills, there were other laws made. Why it wasn't done in the previous session? Now we'll have to wait for another Parliament session. So why it wasn't done before? And there are certain members in the community that are asking, is the government really serious on bail reforms? Please.
Yeah, so the answer to those questions is that absolutely the government is serious about bail reform, and we've got a large sector of the population that's very, very keen on getting this passed. And the answer as to why it wasn't passed in May or June really should be posed to the leader of the official opposition. We had a lot of obstruction and tactics being played in the House of Commons, and unfortunately that led to delays and procedural games that were being played. Some bills were not able to be passed. Some bills were. This is one that we desperately thought we would have a large amount of buy-in and support from the opposition parties, including the Conservative Party of Canada. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case in May and June. I hope that after having listened to Canadians throughout the summer, that the Conservative members of Parliament, including their leader, have heard the same things that I've heard, which is that Canadians are united in wanting bail reform to be passed and passed quickly. And that's what I'll be working to do. I do find it a bit frustrating because I get a lot of Conservative support from the provincial level, including the provincial Attorney General here in Ontario, who's himself Conservative, who's told me that this is a top priority for him, as it is for me.
Right. And, we've seen many issues at a global level, all because of fake news. We've seen stock markets fall down because of fake news, hatred being spread online. So I'm sure your government is trying to do a lot on that front. We'd like to listen from you.
Yes, this is a really a pressing concern in terms of sort of what's happening on the internet, what's happening on the web. And we know that that results in targeting of communities such as the South Asian community, among other communities. And I have always been focused on this work. I did it previously as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice. I'm very privileged and honored to have this new role as the Minister of Justice. So this is one of the forthcoming legislative initiatives that we are going to be pursuing and addressing the issue about online safety, about how do we keep vulnerable communities safe, how do we keep children safe, how do we keep women safe, how do we keep minority groups, including people that are racialized. So that could be South Asians, that could be different members of religious minority communities, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, etc. This is all fundamental to who we are as a government and who we are as a country in terms of wanting to ensure the safety of all of our citizens. This is it's not an easy space to wade into, but we know that when we look at hatred incidents around the country, we know a lot of hatred is developed and spread, unfortunately, online and on the internet. And we're trying to ensure that that doesn't result in real life consequences on the ground where people's physical safety is actually being jeopardized or threatened.
Yeah, and I know it's freedom of speech is very important, but I like you to elaborate a little bit more in the disguise of freedom of speech. There is hatred being spread, and also can we do something regarding fake news, because spreading of fake news has become a major challenge. It just supports so much of violence.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd say to you is that before taking this job and before becoming a parliamentarian, Yudhvir, I was a constitutional lawyer. So I'm very a keen advocate and defender of charter rights, and that includes the right under Section 2B of the Charter, which is freedom of expression. It's foundational to any democracy, including Canada's democracy. So let me say that right up front. That's fundamental. In terms of people having the ability to speak their minds and be vocal, including in their opposition to me or my party or my government or anything else for that matter. That being said, there need to be safeguards that are put in place. We already have strong protections in place in Canada that relate to sort of the world as we knew it prior to the internet, about spreading hatred, about fomenting discrimination, etc. The idea is to modernize our legislation so that it understands that certain types of communication are now occurring online and over the internet as opposed to on paper or on television, for example. In terms of fake news, I think this is a concern that all democracies are dealing with, Yudhvir. Our democracy is no different than many of where our viewers hail from, whether that's India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, you name it. All democracies are struggling with the spread and sometimes the viral spread of information that just isn't accurate. We're trying to deal with that. We're trying to deal with that in a rapid manner. It is sometimes difficult to keep pace, to be frank, because things are changing in such rapid manners. But what we're trying to do is ensure that also there's a level of what we call digital literacy, which is a big term, Yudhvir, for just sort of saying that people need to be critical about where they're receiving their information. They need to be thinking about it hard and also consulting multiple sources. It's indifferent from when you or my mother or father might get solicited by somebody who wants to sell them some sort of new appliance or clean their ducts, etc., and is actually a fraud masquerading as some legitimate service. We encourage people to be critical and be intelligent in their approach to people that might be trying to do them harm. The same exists online, especially for young people. I mean, as a father myself, I'm sure you have a family. So many of our viewers have strong believers in the family, in the strong South Asian extended family. I think keeping our children safe is really fundamental. And that's not just safe from fake news, but that's also safe from some of the hatred and some of the predators that exist online. That's fundamental for any family, but especially for South Asian families because of that strong sense of family. And that's the approach I'm going to bring to the work that I'm doing as Justice Minister.
Yeah, no, your work is very important, Minister. And just yesterday, while discussion about crime with the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, he was suggesting in interview with me yesterday that the Liberals are not tough on crime. And, recent incidents, a pizza driver, pizza delivery boy, just for carjacking, he was stabbed to death. Here we have another incident for carjacking, and 6 people are seriously injured. So the perception that is being built, or even the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre also mentioned, are Liberals really tough on crime? And he was saying if the Conservative form the government, they'll be very tough on crime. Your take on this one?
So first of all, I'd say that the statistics actually demonstrate that the amount of violent crime that's endangering people has not been dramatically increasing. So that's the first point. The second point I would say is that we take a very fundamental approach towards criminality that looks at the root causes of crime. And what I mean by that is that you can go out there and put out your slogans, et cetera, about tough on crime and law and order. What we prefer to talk about is being smart on crime. And what I mean by that, Yudhvir, is I mean being smart about what causes a young person to embrace a gang lifestyle in the interior of BC, what causes young people to turn to violence, or older people to turn to violence and endanger our communities. That is related to what's happening with the healthcare system, what's happening with mental health and addictions, what's happening with housing, what's happening with education. We're trying to address all of these on multiple fronts. That's the approach of the Liberal government. That approach has actually done well for Canada up to this point. That is an approach we will continue to employ. My role as Justice Minister is to look after things that relate to the criminal code. Therefore, I'm working on bail reform, and I'm working on it fast and as quickly as possible. And I want Pierre Poilievre's cooperation to get that bill passed. But I'd also like Pierre Poilievre's cooperation to deal with things like addictions. I'd also like the official opposition's cooperation to deal with things like basic housing and the housing supports we need to put in place. Sometimes even economic deprivation and people's feeling the pinch in terms of a cost of living crisis can lead to sometimes petty criminality, which escalates into larger levels of criminality. If we put in place certain economic relief measures and packages to assist people in their time of need, that can help reduce what could potentially turn into adverse outcomes on the back end. Therefore, I would ask, again, opposition parliamentarians like Pierre Poilievre to get behind some of the economic measures we are taking. So we see this from a broad approach. It's never just one single thing. Again, to give you the simple analogy, in the South Asian family, it's rarely when somebody acts out, it's rarely about one particular incident. It's about something that happened that day or that week, something that's happening at school, something that's happening in the home, something that may be happening with respect to somebody's health circumstances. We're looking at it comprehensively, the same way South Asian families look at items. And that's the approach that I will take. And I also think it's fundamental that we don't overly criminalize or overly incarcerate people, because the people that tend to be overly incarcerated are people that look like you and me, Yudhvir. If we're being honest with ourselves, there have been problems with overrepresentation and systemic racism in the justice system that targets Indigenous people, Black people, and people of color, including brown-skinned individuals who come from South Asia.
Right. Minister, my last question is, this is a bit of an overlap. I've always spoken about integration, and we're bringing in immigrants, international students. Sometimes because of financial or other challenges, they also become vulnerable to picking up crime or other stuff. So what are we doing collectively, what your government is doing collectively to make sure that they do not become vulnerable or start doing criminal activities, and how well are we able to integrate them in our society?
Well, that's a great question, Yudhvir. I think a few things is that we're open and welcome. We've got great places, for example, to study in Canada, colleges, universities that are world-renowned. That's an amazing thing, and we want to champion that and be proud of it, right? Sometimes as Canadians, we're a little bit too polite. So we're welcoming people to come here and study, and to potentially come here and stay and start working, and even remain here and raise a family here. That's the good part about the Canadian experience, and that's fundamentally about what I'm about. I came here as a refugee from Uganda as part of that South Asian exodus in '72, and I stand before you as the first South Asian person to ever become the Attorney General of Canada, the first Muslim person to ever become the Attorney General of Canada. That's a great story about Canadian success. in terms of ensuring that they don't face obstacles or challenges that might lead to difficult consequences. What we're also trying to ensure is that they're protected in terms of their arrival here, but also when they get here. And what I mean by that is sometimes there are unscrupulous people in home countries that are promising certain things, that are acting in a fraudulent manner, dishonestly, and leading people to believe that certain things will happen upon arrival in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Calgary, or in Montreal, for example. We're trying to make sure we eradicate and prevent those measures from occurring. And we're putting in place the measures here once people arrive that they can get the assistance that they need in order to succeed. Some of the work I'm most proud of is the work we've been trying to do as a government, working with different provinces to ease the regulatory burdens and reduce those burdens, so people that trained as a dentist in India, or trained as an engineer in Pakistan, or trained as a pharmacist in Sri Lanka can actually participate in those occupations once they get here. It's not solely our decision as a national government. We need to work with the provinces and their regulatory bodies, but that's something that we will continue to work on, because it's important for ensuring the success of those young people, whether they're coming here at a young age or already with some professional qualifications.
Minister, thank you so much for your time. And without blurring the lines, we are in media. I must say, yes, you're certainly a success story, and it's great to see you. I was doing the front page of Midweek, and when the headline was the winners and losers in the cabinet shuffle, you certainly, if I had to, this morning I said it on my radio as well, if I had to pick one winner, certainly it will be Virani, without blurring the lines. But compliments on that one, and you're definitely a great success story and inspiring many. Carry on the great work. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to host you here at Channel Y Studios as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yudhvir. Rest assured that I've been getting lots of congratulatory messages from family in India and family in East Africa. So it's been very, very satisfying, but comes with a lot of responsibility, and I'm determined to ensure that I meet those responsibilities and give 150% effort to ensuring the work of the Justice Minister and the government is successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Certainly, we hope that for you. And best wishes. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.